Nick. Good evening, everyone. So before we get started into our mechanics discussions and watch a couple plays and talk about how we can all get on the same page and we can all become more consistent with the way we're lining up and the way that we will officiate each play, not only will it provide consistency, but it also help get everybody on the same page as to where our eyes should be and allow us to be in the best position to officiate if there were to be any fouls or any, like Denny talked about prior to the meeting starting, if you haven't heard, about referees being in the right position to see the quarterback at all times. So that's where our discussion will pretty much be today. There was a few announcements, situations that Brian wanted me to touch on before we would get started. And I have a document here that I'm going to try to pull up and get started. So bear with me for 1 second. And
Tim, you look like you're directing an airplane into the PIT out there to try to get it to land. So you look really.
Thanks. Yeah, I try to look important when I just stole my my son's Xbox headphones. So if you see me go down at any point, it could be him trying to confiscate his equipment back. And where are we at here? So generally, what we'll get into are just some of the common announcements. Unfortunately, the document's not loading for me to share because it's on the cloud. If I do get to that, I will. So generally, our announcements, we want to be as short as possible and as to the point as possible. I was guilty of trying to say as much as I can, thinking that it'd be the most beneficial for getting my point across. And it took Gene Steratore being at one of my games to tell me, how can it still be first down when first down never occurred after a false start? And it really had me thinking, well, yeah, why am I saying it's still first down? Or I'm sorry, replay first down when first down never even occurred yet. So taking little words out of your announcements can really impact the way the common football attendee in the crowd, or even these announcers that want to guess everything that we're doing out there before we actually are able to click on the mic. The more to the point that we can be, the better off we are. So for that example, if we have a false start, it's a lot easier to say false start, offense, 5-yard penalty, first down. But the second we get into the false start, offense, 5-yard penalty, replay, second down, it's, wait, we never played the down, so now we can't replay it. And it just puts all these scenarios and all these question marks into a simple announcement. Something as far as a false start. If we say prior to the snap, we're adding something that's irrelevant because no false start can occur if it's not prior to the snap. So that's something that we don't even need to address in our announcement because it's a given. There's quite a few, like I know, especially in this day and age, the one that I always try to stay away from is ineligible man downfield. We all know that a lot of these young guys are men, but we can't address them as men. They're players, ineligible player downfield, because you never know what the politically correct term is. So if we stay away from just little nuances in our announcements, it'll really impact the way we are perceived when we click on the mic, especially when we're on TV, because more and more games are being live streamed on Facebook, different social media platforms. And it really is critical that we're giving the proper information as we share the announcements, click on the mic. Everything's under a radar on what we say anymore. Still trying to download this document because it's really handy to have, that I eventually will share with the entire group, or have Nick share with everybody, because it is beneficial for all of us.
Hey, Tim, I just want to, I have a question, and I'm
Yeah.
still here listening to you guys. Dave Blair, we're okay to do the number, correct? I just want to make sure that that's a NFHS or PIA adoption to say holding number, offense number 55 or whatever. We're okay to do the number, correct?
Yeah, we are, Nick. I checked with Dave
Okay.
earlier.
All right,
Yeah.
Brian, I apologize. I didn't know you were on.
Well, no problem. And to your point, Nick, I want to make one general announcement, and this part of it had to do with yesterday. Everything that Tim and myself are going to teach, not only in this meeting, the last meeting, and the meetings to come, I have run everything by Dave Blair. Dave Blair has given me the blessing to teach the mechanics, teach the positioning the way it is. So he is well aware, and if you're ever concerned about situations where you are fortunate enough to work a state game and you go out of the district to have they should be adhering to these same mechanics too, because eventually the stuff that we're going to be using here, and I'm hopefully going to be making some more videos on, it's going to be shared throughout the state. So it's worst, we have a benefit of we're starting it here. So we're making the rules. Dave and I have been working really hand in hand to go over some of the things that are redundancies, or things that are just not necessarily needed. So I wanted to put all that to bed and out there right now, so that we can just understand, and we're comfortable with everything that's being taught going forward.
Brian, if you don't mind, real quick, I'll go over this
Sure.
referee announcement. So this could be sent out to the group, and we'll make sure every referee has access to this, just to review and refresh yourselves. A lot of this I will adjust to be more pertaining to high school and remove some of the announcement, but this is sort of general guidelines, and this helps you when there's cameras. Like point number 1, where to look. Don't look for a camera, just look about halfway up. Don't walk into your announcements. Come to a complete stop. Someone's drawing all over my screen. Who is it? That's all right. Someone has control of the screen they're drawing. Don't walk into the announcements. Stop. It feels like we need to hurry up and we need to get the information out and we need to be done. But really, if we just stop, I always tell myself, you're clicking on the mic in my head, because if I'm stopped and I can tell myself that, I know that I'm getting prepared to speak, and it gives me enough time to calm myself down. Whenever you have to put your microphone on, there's no reason to pat. You just flip the switch. Everyone in media production knows that you are about to click on the microphone. So if there is a TV influence on whether your mic's being heard or not, don't focus on that. Focus on your switch that you have on your belt. And like I said about removing unnecessary words on the offense, just say holding offense. The less we have to say, the less we will stumble through our announcements. Also removing we have. We don't have anything. They've presented us with the foul. We're just communicating what they've done. We don't need to pluralize offsides, but we don't have offside in high school. So that's one we can really stay away from. The clock operator, always be polite when we're asking someone to correct an issue. Whether it's putting a timeout back, whether it's whatever we have to correct on the scoreboard or with the official time, always use your please and thank yous. If you have to correct an announcement, which we all have to do at some point, and the best word to have in any of our vocabulary is correction. If we hurry up and enforce a penalty that we assume is going to be right, and the coach changes his mind, just click on the mic and say correction. That's one that we can be moving whenever we correct that. But if you can stop and they get attention to you, it's preferred. Again, with repeat or remains, it's just unnecessary, because you get into that situation where you say it, you're repeating a down that's never occurred yet, or you're saying it remains a down. you just need to say what down is coming next. And this one, I'm a little different on as far as there's no foul for intentional grounding because the quarterback was outside the pocket. Brian, you give your feedback. If the situation feels like everyone wanted you to throw the foul, and especially with the new rule change, I think that this is okay to communicate.
So Tim, this is, and I'm going to use a big word that I looked it up in the dictionary, an in situ announcement. So say that you have a situation where the quarterback rolls out, throws the ball, it lands close to the either the line of scrimmage or the quarterback is close to being outside of the tackle box. You don't need to go through the entire, and if you have a microphone, you don't need to go through the entire exercise of stopping the game and just flick on your mic and say, there is no foul for intentional grounding. The quarterback was outside the pocket and the ball made the line of scrimmage. Click off the mic. You don't have to present anything. That just gives everybody, you just communicated it to the coaches, the fans. Everyone knows what you have there. I don't think that's a bad idea, especially with the new rule change this year.
Right.
Because there could be a lot of confusion for how many years we have told the coaches that that's a Saturday rule or that's a Sunday rule. Now it's our rule. And and the fans too, they get all confused. So it's okay if you have that if you're able to process that information, adding that little verbiage just adds to the game and adds to your credence of what's going on. So, the ball falls incomplete, they're booing, you flick on the mic and say, there is no foul for intentional grounding. The quarterback was outside the pocket, outside the tackle box, and the ball made the line of scrimmage. Second down.
And Brian, and using the reference by rule, the quarterback was outside the tackle box and there is no intentional grounding. By rule is always a big selling point.
I can take or leave by rule, Bill, honestly, because everything we do right is by rule. If you feel comfortable doing that, I don't have a problem with that. It's at sometimes there is a time where it adds that extra, basis behind it. But if this is your second or third announcement of that during the game, the first time I'd say it's fine to use, but after that Jay should know by about that point. But that's a good point.
Yeah, if it's a unique situation, like this second one obviously applies to college, but in a situation where you're explaining an unusual occurrence and it is by rule, like throw it in there with your announcement, but also be sure that it's by rule because someone will catch it.
And Tim, I think one thing and if you brought this up, I'm going to apologize. A great way to practice all of this is most of us have smartphones. So read a rules question and announce it and then play it back from your phone. See how you look like, and there is not a need to yell into the microphone. That just causes everyone to cringe when you start yelling in the microphone. You just sound like a grumpy old curmudgeon. So if you practice that or practice it in the mirror with clear, crisp signals, it just, again, it helps the presentation of the game. And referees, that's what we do. Or not me, I'm not a referee, I'm not pretty enough, but that's what you do. You present the game. You present what's going on in the field. You manage what's going on in the field. So it by not yelling, it helps a lot.
Right. And, the rest of these are, again, we won't go through every single one because we will make this available to everybody and it will be high school related because Dave, Blair, and Barry, I will send it to you all first to make sure that I removed any college related references. But for instance, like I touched on, there's no illegal formation for 5 men in the backfield. There's 5 players in the backfield. When we're giving a signal for ineligibles downfield, there's no reason to pat your head and rub your tummy. It's just hand on your head and give your signal.
And one of the other ones is unsportsmanlike. We're not trying to fly a plane. I know, no matter how mad. My first referee was Vince Berardinelli, and he was an angry old Italian man. And he would get so angry when he would throw those unsportsmanlike that he was flapping in the wind. It's just straight out. and you can tell that Tim and my supervisor is a referee, because this is what he's really pressing with the referees, is their announcements and their signals.
Yeah, and especially the last one I'll touch on before we move into the PowerPoint, Brian, is if we pick up a flag and you know why, like if there was great communication within the crew that there was no foul for an illegal block in the back because it was from the side, just throw it into your announcement to clear up the air for anyone who may question why you're picking up an illegal block in the back. But again, I will adjust this and get that approved by Dave Barry and Dave Blair, and then Brian and I will have it shared to all the referees for their use and help them form their microphone. All right.
Thanks, Tim. So we'll start with the referee mechanics. What I'm going to do is, am I sharing can everybody see my screen? Yes, no?
Yeah.
Present. So I have a presentation up at referee mechanics.
No, we see
Okay, so-
you.
Yeah, just
Oh,
see you.
Oh, you don't want to see me?
Yeah, get that off
That's
the
enough.
screen.
Get that nastiness off the screen. Okay, so now hopefully you can see this. It's a referee mechanics. And again, we're getting back to the basics here, because I can tell you this. I know everybody on this call may or may not work for Tim and I and Lenny, but this is a big part of your evaluations throughout the year. Okay, is are you following the mechanics? Because most of you are able to decipher what is and what is not a foul. Okay, you know what a hold is, you know what a block in the back is, you know what a false start is. But these mechanics will help put us in the situation to best be able to see these fouls. And as I'm explaining this stuff, and as Tim is talking through this stuff, what we need you to help us do during this is the why we're putting you in those situations, okay? Because I learn best by somebody telling me why. Okay, you have to stand here, why, to explain to me why, and then hopefully it sinks into your head as to what we're trying to accomplish. So we're going to go through each of the different types of plays. So the first one is scrimmage kick play, is a regular scrimmage play. So your initial position as a referee is on the throwing sidearm of the quarterback. Okay, your width should be just outside where the tight end would line up. The reason being is twofold. Where you are, if that quarterback gets anywhere near you, you know, without counting steps, and if that person throws the ball, the quarterback is outside the tackle box for intentional grounding purposes. Okay. Number two, as most of us get older, our speed gets less. So the width, I've seen a lot of referees out, when you're snapping the ball from the middle of the field, out by the numbers or even wider. I don't think we have any Usain Bolts here, but to get from the right side of the quarterback and then to roll the whole way to the left and out of bounds, and who we are responsible for them as referees, is a long run. Okay, so if we need additional width and the quarterback drops back to a deep drop or comes to our side, we back out in a 45-degree angle. Okay, so that will help you get your width. Your key, and this is where I'm going to challenge you all. Okay, the key is the tackle on the head linesman side. Now, the reason being is if you look at the mechanics of the head linesman and the line judge, the mechanics of the head linesman tell them on a pass to go the downfield 5 yards. Okay, so the likelihood of them being able to help with that tackle goes down severely. Okay, because they're 5 yards up the field. If that tackle's getting depth on the defensive end, that tackle is probably going to be 5 yards in the backfield. That's a 10-yard look. That's a very difficult look for a head linesman. Now, this is where this is a good pregame topic. If there are trips to the line judge's side, when I was a line judge, I would always, if I had trips to my side and I was the line judge, the referee would look at me and say, I got your tackle right before the snap. So I knew that person was taking my tackle because I had number 2 and then I had number 3 in that situation. So we're asking referees now to look at the formation as it comes out, because if you have a quarterback and 1 back in the backfield, you know there are 4 wide receivers out there somewhere, whether they are to the right of you or to the left of you. So get used to getting that awareness of where the strength of the formation is. If we have a double-double, and what I mean by a double-double is quarterback, running back, and 2 receivers to each side, that's where we defer to the head linesman sides. Does anybody have any questions on what I'm trying to explain to you as far as your keys with the
question on that, Brian. So that doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what arm the quarterback is, left or right-handed, unless there's trips on the line judge side. We're always going to key the tackle on the head linesman side, correct?
That is correct, because again, it'll flip as you move back and forth on the field, whether you're looking through or you're looking at the tackle on the short side. Now, when you have that tackle on the short side, you might be a little bit quicker to get that 45-degree depth so that you can be able to see that tackle. It's going to be a little bit tighter for you. So I understand that, but this is a good way to, we have to work. We can't just say, I'm taking the tackle across from me. We have to start to think about how our little piece of what we're trying to do fits into the general, how our crew works. Okay. Now, for plays going away from us, we work backside. We work backside behind the play, and the umpire, which we'll get to, will then shift to the front side to the point of attack if the sweep is away from us. Plays coming to us, obviously, we're going to work the front side, and the umpire is going to work the backside. Now, like I said earlier, we're not really fast, some of us, and it's difficult sometimes to be able to keep up with the quarterback, but we always have to understand and be able to rule on how the quarterback goes to the ground, no matter where that quarterback is on the field. It makes it a little bit difficult when the quarterback runs up the middle. That means that we have to sort of manipulate ourselves, and that doesn't mean we have to be right on top of the quarterback, but we have to have that quarterback in our vision, because as you see on Sunday, Saturday, and Friday, that person is probably the most important person on the field for that team. And if they lose that quarterback, they're not going to be able to, be at a high level like they were before.
Brian.
Yes.
Can you look at my chat? Right-handed quarterback rolls left. Okay. Cuts back in the middle of the field and breaks free in the middle of the field. Now, there's a lot going on behind the play. Now, the quarterback is busting loose down the field. Now, what do I do behind the play? That's my question.
So if you're a right-handed, you got a right-handed quarterback that rolls to the left, right, and then runs upfield. So I'm tailing that quarterback the best I can, because I know I have a wing official that really has nothing to do. That is left behind me, who can clean up behind the play. That's where we challenge our rest of our crew not to take plays off. We have a deep wing on that side of the field, who, if the quarterback's going away, really, what do they have to look at? So challenge your crew not to take plays off, and to say, hey, when this happens, it makes it difficult for me to catch a backside hold or to catch a cheap shot. This is where I need your help, and this is where I need your eyes to look. And as I talk with the line of scrimmage people later on, I'm going to bring up that point to them, that we just don't take plays off.
Okay, so I'm chasing him. I'm chasing him down the field. I may pass up other players. Is that okay?
That's okay, because umpires, what should we not be doing? We should not be ball watchers. Well, that's something that I challenge every umpire on this call tonight to do, because myself and Tim have watched a lot of film, and we're, as an umpire, we're being too much of ball watchers. Okay, we have to stay with our keys, center, 2 guards. We'll get to that later. And that backside stuff. Now, when I tell you have to be the quarterback, you don't have to be in his back pocket. You can still be 10, possibly 15 yards away from that
I'll be
quarterback.
15 yards behind him because he's a lot faster than me, but I'm chasing him upfield.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
That's what I want to do.
Because
That's what I
that's
do.
your baby. That's your baby.
Okay. Thank
Okay.
you.
Hey, Brian, let me jump in real quick, and Tim will probably agree with me here. When we say chase, if he goes left, you're going to flatten out. You're not going to be in trying to stay, that few steps behind him. Just keep him in your vision. If he breaks and goes upfield, try to work to the angle so you don't have players between you and the quarterback, so you can get a good look, but you don't have to be right on top of him. And what I'm saying is, don't be in a hurry to get up on him. Allow him to go down the field as he becomes that runner, but keep eyes on him. You can throw a flag 20 yards away just as easy as you can 10 yards away.
Well, Dave,
Tim?
I'm telling you now, I'm not going to be able to keep up with these quarterbacks. I will definitely be 15 to 20 yards behind him.
And that's
As long
fine.
as I know to follow him, that's fine.
You'll have a wide field of vision is
Yes.
what you'll do, because the closer you get, the narrower that field can become. So again, we're dealing with six men and women officiating game. There are holes in our mechanics, unfortunately, because we don't have the luxury of having 7 or 8 people. So these again, I said this yesterday, there's no absolutes with mechanics or anything that we're going to teach. You're going to have to adjust, like you said, John. You're going to be a little bit further behind the play, but you can understand that as you're rolling and seeing that other people may be more fleet of foot and be able to keep up with that quarterback a little bit better. We have to adjust those sort of latitudes that we're given to best suit our ability.
The
Okay,
goal is, like Dave said, before we move on, we have to have an opinion on the quarterback. That doesn't mean we have to be the first flag on the ground. We just need to know what happened during that play that caused the quarterback either to go to the ground or to end up in a situation or scenario that's unfavorable to that player. So as long as we position ourselves, as that means we have to roll past some players, we rely on our officials to pick up our backside, which is critical to communicate before the season who covers what backside, so we can all keep our eyes where they need to be throughout the play.
There are a number of these offenses. This is Bill Heitkamp. There's a number of these offenses where the quarterback is the main runner on the team. And so once he breaks and he decides to go up the middle, I mean, you have to officiate behind the play and near the play, but he becomes just a runner. I don't know how you can do anything different.
Right. Not every situation, Bill, our opinion is going to be valid, but a play where the quarterback scrambles and he breaks downfield, we could certainly follow that. Or if he starts breaking downfield and he's in the open field where he may slide, that's when he's going to be defenseless in a situation. We have to have an input. But if he keeps the ball on the QB sneak going to the right side, yeah, we certainly can break away from focusing so much on the ball carrier and try to catch a hold or something on the backside. But to the point earlier, we also have to feel the play and understand where our quarterback becomes vulnerable and where he becomes, like you said, a ball carrier.
He just took him for a ride on the tractor.
Brian, like, you should stay on the quarterback's hip if he goes into the bench area, right? You want to be in there with him and block him back out.
Yeah. Obviously, yeah. That's a good point, Frank. You follow him in. Again, you don't have to be right on top of him, because if you're right on top of them, you may not see something that's going on around. So just again, I'm going to give you the general thing. Hold on, I think somebody needs to be muted. We just have to put ourselves in the position to be able to rule on how the ball carrier, either how the quarterback gets hit, goes to the ground, or
Okay, thank you.
No problem. Okay, so let's go to scrimmage kick play. Let me adjust this scrimmage kick play. So we're looking at a punt. So our initial, I messed it up. So scrimmage kicks, punts. Our initial positioning is on the kicking leg side of the punter. Okay, our width is in line with the tackle. Okay, we're a little bit tighter than we are on normal plays. Our depth should be 2 to 3 yards deeper than the punter. I've talked to Dave Blair a little bit about this last year. I saw a lot of referees lined up on the same yard line as the punter. Okay, what that does is we have to move our heads. So if we're going to go from officiating the personal protectors to the punter, we have to turn our heads. If we are 2 to 3 yards deeper than the punter, we can keep, as the punter moves forward to kick the ball, they come right into our view, right with the personal protector. So we can officiate all of that without ever moving our heads. Okay. So, and that's a key point with officiating, is trying to move efficiently and effectively. And you're going to laugh when I say this, as minimal as possible. We have, just like with the quarterback, we have to be able to rule on how the punter gets contacted, whether the player gets forced into the punter or not. We can get help from our wing officials, but we should, just like on roughing the passer plays, we should be able to feel how that pressure coming and transition from one to the other. And after the ball was punted, we should work the second wave and jog slowly upfield. We should officiate in front of the punt returner. We have 2 deep wings, a field judge and side judge, who will be officiating directly in front of the punt returner. We're looking for pull downs or stuff that happens behind the play, behind that first wave, to be able to get. Any questions on punt plays? And after we go through these slides, we do have some plays to illustrate what we're talking about here. All right, field goals and
Brian,
tries.
can we go back to punts real quick? So this is a change in the mechanic from the manual where they wanted us on the yard line, even
Yes.
with where we believe the punt to be kicked from.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. And, and again, Dave's on, he can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we talked about this one. And I will make these slides available to everyone, just like Tim's going to send that out. I'm going to make these general slides available, and so that you have these little tidbits to go off. And my goal is to, prior to the season, take these slides and incorporate them in the plays and put them on YouTube for everyone.
Hey, Brian, you critiqued me on that last year, and I changed it. And I do think it's better we are deeper than the punter. 100%. I mean, I was perpendicular. I was completely with him. And I do think it's better we're deeper. I agree with that.
Yeah, because you're taking yourself out of the play. You're just watching one player when there's 10 other players, whenever you're. So, okay, field goals and tries. Our initial positioning is on the side of the holder. Our width is just outside the widest lineman, and depth 5 yards deeper than the holder. We look through the holder to the opposite tackle. We'll catch any hooks or turns on that side of the tackle, on that side of the line of scrimmage. And again, just like before, we are able to rule on how the kicker holder gets contacted, whether they're forced or not. Okay. The last one is free kicks. Now, so our width should be in line with the kicking tee. That's where we should start. Our depth, this is dependent on the kicker. Okay. If the kicker can make it near the goal line, we want to be deeper, 3 to 5 yards deep in the end zone. And I know this is a deviation from the mechanics manual, so let me explain why, and I'll show you via video. Referees, we're too focused on the person making the catch, whether they cross the goal line or not. Allow your line judge and head linesman to do that, because is we'll see in some plays, we're looking at the kick returner catching it, the line judge or head linesman looking at them, the catching it. So right now we're officiating 22 players with 4 officials. We need to keep our eyes up the field and allow, so I want you to just to be, if they can make the end zone, get a little bit deeper into the end zone, okay? Once the ball is kicked, you can look out of the peripheral, or you can just take a quick peek up and look at the flight of the ball and start to position yourself behind the returner, because everything on the kicking team will funnel right towards that returner. They will umbrella around it and get their penetration up that middle. And right then, as you look up through there, is when you're going to see that person who's running through free, could be blocked in the back, or that's where you'll get your best view for a reverse takedown. Only after the kick returner has caught and moved upfield do we start jogging upfield. Tim, do you have anything more to add on the free kicks?
No, I like
Yeah.
it.
Go ahead, Dave.
Oh, I'm sorry. The common sense there, Brian, is if he can get to that, if the kicker can kick it to the goal line, get off the goal line.
Yeah, it's because what I don't, if I just want to make us not watch the person catch the ball. That's my main reason, and that's why Dave and I have talked about this, because we're taking ourselves out of the play. Okay, and so I'm gonna stop my share. I'm gonna go through the umpire mechanics real quick.
Can I stop you for a moment?
Sure, John.
To the PAT and field goal.
Okay.
We want the referee on the holder's side, meaning we're looking to the back of the holder.
No, we should be looking at their eyes.
We should be looking into the holder, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
Very good. Thank you.
No problem. Give me 1 second here.
Hey, Brian, I don't know if anybody's down in Waynesburg area, but there's a tornado warning in that area.
Everyone hear that one? All right. Oh, let me stop my share. It's the wrong one. No one wants to see a picture of my kids. Shoot.
No, it said Umpire Mechanics, Brian.
Oh, we're at Umpire Mechanics. Okay, so we're going to go through the same thing. So scrimmage kick play. Your initial positioning as an umpire should be opposite the tight end. Your width should be no wider than the guard tackle gap. I've seen some instances where the umpires actually has the same width as we're asking the referee to be. And then the next important part for umpires to go is your depth should only be 7 to 8 yards deep. A lot of situations that we saw last year where some people were 10, 11, even 12 yards deep. You're starting to get into back judge territory with that. And so I'm going to tell you the reason why for the depth is because we got the center and 2 guards, and as they're dropping back in pass coverage, if we're 10 yards away from them, then they start dropping back 2, 3, 4 yards. That makes us 15 yards away from the call. Okay. So our keys are our centers and both guards. And if you see a center and a guard double team, have a double team block on a defensive lineman, we should immediately move off the double team, because I won't say it will never happen, but we're not going to be, they're giving up two players on 1 tackle. We need to move to 1-on-1 action in those situations. Just like the referees, plays going away from us, you're going to work backside, plays coming to you, you're going to work front side. And I strongly encourage you all, don't get caught watching the runner. You'll see the runner run by you. There are blocks happening right at the point of attack, and a lot of umpires are just turning and watching the runner. Then this next part is and we have to spin on passes, but we only want to spin on passes that are line drives over the middle to help with catch, no catch. If there's any sort of arc going on, we need to stay with our initial keys in those situations. Any questions on that? All right, punt plays, initial positioning, opposite the referee, no wider than the tackle. This is where our depth should be at 10 yards, and we'll key the interior lineman. We know that we're responsible as umpires for roughing the snapper. Okay. If somebody correct me if I'm wrong, but the snapper needs to get their head up prior to being able to be contacted. We allow the first wave to pass us and only turn when that second wave goes upfield. We should not let players behind us as we turn upfield. And then we work the second wave, jog slowly upfield, keeping our eyes in front of the punt returner. So us and the referee are responsible for that area right up in there. Any questions on that? All right, field goals and tries. Initial positioning, same as a scrimmage play, and we are to be able to rule on contact on the snapper. Pretty simple there. And then finally on free kicks, our initial position, that's not, it's 5 yards behind the kicker. We should understand and be able to rule on if the ball is kicked directly into the ground and blow it dead if that's the case. They're doing it onside. And we're going to key the kicking team members on either side of the kicker. So we're going to let them kick the ball, start moving upfield. Once they get up, get 10 yards upfield, we're going to slowly jog upfield 10 to 15 yards and set up camp there and watch all of the blocking that's going on in front of the kicker.
Brian, before you move on, are umpires also still responsible to make sure the kicking team members are within the 5 yards? They're not allowed to touch or be beyond that 5 yard mark behind the free kick line.
Yes,
That is correct.
All right.
And
And
that's
also, Brian, I think on the free kick, I was taught to stand just slightly to the right of if you have a right-footed kicker, so you can actually see whether or not the ball hits the ground initially.
Yeah, that's what I was getting at with the being able to rule. I didn't put it in there exactly, George, but thanks for bringing that up.
Yeah.
Again, it's your preference on those little nuances there on where you want to position yourself on either side of the kicker. And to Tim's point earlier about where the kicking team is lined up, we should do our extreme best job to preventive officiate that from happening. Okay. If we see it, we talk to them. If it's prior to the kick, hey, move up. That's something that we don't want to happen. Just like on a free kick, we never want to have an illegal substitution with 12 players on the field, or we should never start a free kick situation with only 10 players on the field. If we chop it in and see it, there's nothing wrong with pumping it back up and talking. We just don't. Those are situations that I think a lot of you have the understanding that you've been doing this long enough and understand that we don't need for that to happen. Okay, so we're going to go through some kickoff mechanics and we'll start with some kickoff plays here. And let me just rewind it back. So this is 7-man. So what I want to do is I want to take a look at the referee right here. So we have the referee is 2 or 3 yards into the backfield behind the runner, and the head is up the field. Okay, right exactly where we would like it to see it, winding the clock and jogging upfield. Okay. What I wanted to show we're watching the ball. If we stay on the goal line, our eyes are on the goal line here. Okay. This is where you get back to the trust of your line of scrimmage officials. You want to be able to trust them to be able to rule whether the ball crosses the plane of the goal line and whether that's runner's knee goes to the ground. Because right now, as we transition up the field, our eyes don't get up the field. We're still watching the runner, but our eyes don't get up the field until now. And we could potentially miss a block in the back or another situation here where we could, if we would have seen the entire play, I know we would have called.
And Brian, the referee is no longer responsible for winding that clock unless you're in a short free kick situation. So let your H and your L, trust them to pick up that ball and wind, because if you're looking at that receiver, as Brian said, and you're worried about starting the clock, you're going to miss that blocking back or low block ahead of you. Look up the field.
Right. So in this situation, I'll just take a look at the umpire. The umpire is in position to see the free kick. So they are able to rule on it. I know that we're jogging. This is, again, your preference. If you want to move up with the kicking team, and if you're able to get that 10 to 15 yards to where you're here, or here's an umpire quicker, that's your decision. Okay. I would just caution you not to move too quickly, because if they squib kick it in here and we're running, we get ourselves stuck in a mess. Okay. So just be a little bit patient here. So here we have a deep kick. We don't want to be watching the kick returner, because what ends up happening is we have a block in the back right at the point of attack. Okay. And we want to be able to get over, and this, when the runner catches the ball here, it makes it difficult for us to get behind this, to get behind the runner. I totally understand it, but we know that they're not going to run up this way, and the likelihood of them coming up to the middle field. So just get to around the hash and look up the quote unquote shoot from there. But I'm glad, Dave, that you brought that up about winding, because I think that will be able to alleviate a little bit of the focus on the kick returner on that point. So here's a illustration of a field goal or try. Referee is 5 yards approximately behind the holder. Maybe you might want to turn a little bit more to 45-degree angle to look through here, be able to see the kicker, the holder, and the offside tackle on this situation here. So it makes it a little bit better, because before, I think some referees were lining up right here and staring straight at the holder. So this adjusting our alignment a little bit will help us here. Again, this is a 7-man mechanic. So here's our umpire right in here. Clear vision at the snapper, is able to tell if the snapper gets roughed or not, and help with holding on interior linemen right there. So here's the situation. Again, another one 5 yards behind. I don't want to continue to beat that same drum. Punt mechanics. So here the referee is approximately maybe about 4 to 5 yards behind the punter. We'd like just come up a little bit more in line with the tackle. And referees, it's your decision on how you want to handle this. Some referees, as the punter's moving forward, will walk forward. But you can either walk forward or just stay still until the ball is kicked. Now let's take a look at the umpire. Go ahead.
Brian, real quick, will you slow forward it until right before the punter actually makes contact with the ball? Your Y here, right there. So look at the importance of, if we were 3 to 4 yards closer, right now, we're going to have a difficult time if number 19 comes in and he's about to make contact with the punter. And we're not going to be able to tell if he touches the ball or the leg, because we're looking through the player's back. Where if we have that closer start position, when that player moves up to kick, because every punter either moves to the side or moves forward to kick the ball. They never move closer to us. So we need to start closer in order to maintain a proper perspective to help roll on any roughing or running into scenarios.
And that's why, Tim, I think if you start this deep, which we don't advocate, you should start walking forward as the punter walks forward, correct?
Right. And if you don't, and to avoid walking and be able to be stationary and focus on the play, just start forward like recommended, and it helps you tremendously.
Okay.
One of the things, guys, this is Darren, just with the rugby style kickers now too, that's a pregame thing. You have to watch them warm up because you don't want to be caught unawares when they start to roll out to your side and then you're caught behind the play, or if they reverse field as well. More and more kickers are doing that. So that's becoming more commonplace, but you will get caught off guard if you're not ready for that sometimes as well. Through
Right.
experience, I know that one, unfortunately.
And that's why, again, getting too close and in line with the punter hurts you on rugby style kickers.
Hey, Brian, on that rugby style
Yeah.
kicker, if he starts to, roll out and starts to run towards the line of scrimmage, and then he sees a defender like the last second, he kicks it. Is he still afforded protection there?
I'm going to defer to someone who knows the rules better than I do.
At
Does
some point,
anybody
he's
else?
a runner. He's a runner.
He's a runner until his foot hits the ball. Once his foot touches the ball, then he becomes a kicker. Now, if there's doubt, you may not have roughing, but that doesn't preclude you from having a personal foul. But he's a kicker once that foot touches the ball.
If he presents himself in a classic kicking position, I say I agree with that. But if he's running forward and all of a sudden he decides to kick the ball, he's not in a classic position.
Correct. But he is a kicker by rule. He is a kicker once his foot touches the ball. So once his foot touches the ball, can he be rough? Yes.
Well, that's where we would have, like Dave, to your point on that, and we'll play a what if scenario. If this player is running and you have a defender coming at them, and this defender commits to make a tackle prior to the kicker starting his kicking motion to kick the ball, and then gets contacted because that defender started his motion to make the tackle prior to the kicker kicking the ball, I would lean towards nothing, because the defender never actually had a chance to move out of the way.
And I would agree, because that's why we get paid big bucks to be back there, referees. That's a judgment call. So we have to be aware that when that happens, in order to make that call. But by rule, he can be rough. But to Brian's point, I agree. He's committed to make that tackle. He can't pull off. You're not going to have roughing.
Right.
I would say the safest way to have consistent judgment on a play like this is understand if you have a punter who rugby style kicks it, and anytime they break outside of that tackle box or start getting wide, look at the nearest defender and officiate the defender. If he comes in committed to the block or the tackle, like Brian said, and then that punter is just starting his kicking motion after that, you know that the defender can't do anything outside of what they already committed to. So it's important that you have the right perspective to be able to see that defender coming in and officiate the defender more or less.
Hey, Tim, the way I rule on this is if he's on a dead run and kicks it on a dead run, he's not given protection. If he stops, sets, then he would be afforded, as Dave said, the status of being a kicker. But some of these guys will run in on a dead run, kick it.
Yeah,
If he's contacted in the midst of running, I don't think that's a foul.
And we also have to keep in perspective that there's still a possibility for a late hit. You know what I mean? That judge the timing of the hit. If it's well after he's completed the kick, everybody knows he's kicked it, right? Whether he was doing it on the full run or he stopped stationary and announced he's punted the ball. Both
And you would just
situations.
have a personal foul, right, Tim?
Correct.
Not an automatic first down.
Correct.
Right. So that's where our judgment plays into it. We can talk about rules of thumb about running, stopping, to Tim's point, if he kicks it, I don't know, Tim, do you yell balls away? you know, and then kind of have that kind of gives you your cadence of 1,001. If you
Yeah,
get to
I don't-
1,002 and then they get hit.
I'm
then-
not good enough to count steps, so nobody could hear me say it, or everyone could hear me say it. I do say balls away on pass and kick, because that gives me the real time feel. Is if I'm consistent with, I see the ball away, I say balls away, and there's a hit, that's late enough to me that justifies a late hit, or a late hit for roughing or running into, whatever the case may be.
All right, so while you brought that point up, so the difference between running and roughing, and we're deviating from our mechanics talk, is if the punter comes down and somebody comes into the plant leg, it's roughing. If it's not a severe hit and they just run into the kicking leg, and I know these punters are actors, so this is again a judgment call, you lean more towards running into. If the hit is severe into the leg, which then puts the punter on the ground, that's when you can upgrade it to a roughing the kicker, correct?
Yes.
Hey, thank you.
Real quick, can you go back to that? Do you think the
Sure.
umpire was too deep on that punt? Yes or no?
So I can't see the umpire, so we're snapping from about the 22, so the umpire should be about the 32, right? So
Okay, thank you.
to your point, yes. I think the umpire would be a little bit too deep on this situation. All right, scrimmage kick play. All right, so our initial position should be, let's go to a different one.
That was a scrimmage play, so that was a good one,
scrimmage
bro.
play.
Oh,
All right.
good. Yeah.
And I'll give Bill the outs on this one, because I know the sun was bright that day, so he was trying to get his bearing straight. So I'm not picking on him on this play. It's just a good visual here. So if you look at the umpire is about 8 yards off the field, off the line of scrimmage, which is great. 7 to 8 yards, boom, boom, tight end side. If you don't have a tight end side, it's better to go to the strong side of the formation, which is in this situation is where we have trips. Okay. So while we're talking about formations, well, before we get to formations, so referees, we're going to want to be 5, 10, 14 yards. So we'll want to be around the 31-yard line and just outside the tackle, or outside where the tight end would line up. So probably right outside of here. Okay, so about 14 yards deep. Okay, so right, 5, 10, 13, 14. Okay, so right where the X is where our initial positioning should be. Okay, so this is a situation where our H is at the top of the screen. And as you saw the slides earlier, our referee should key on the head linesman's tackle. However, in this situation, what we have is we have trips to the line judge's side of the field. So the line judge is now responsible for these two receivers. So referee, if you can see that, you're then now going to look through to this tackle and allow the head linesman to officiate that tackle for you, because they really should not be shuffling down the field that much, because their key is not going to take them down the field. And trust me, I'll explain this to them tomorrow whenever we have our line of scrimmage talk. So this is how we want to start thinking about these formations and where our keys and where our eyes should be. And you know, Tim, you could talk to this a little bit more, but in a way it is easier in these situations where you key the opposite side tackle, because you always have the quarterback, you're looking right through the quarterback to that tackle.
Correct. Yeah, it's just a natural feel to go to that tackle.
And umpires, we want to make sure whatever we are doing with our positioning, we are still like the umpire is here at the snap, and we are able to see the ball. Okay, because one of our first priorities is the snap being clean. There's no double hitch. It's a smooth movement. And as you can see here, when you have tight alignments with the tackle and the guard and even the center, it makes it difficult for a line of scrimmage official to maybe see a flinch on the guard or the center. So we have to own those three players on whether they flinch. Okay. What I will tell you as umpires and referees is be careful and stay, unless it's completely obvious, watch calling a false start on one of these players leaving early, because what you do not have the luxury of, that the line of scrimmage officials have the luxury of is seeing the ball being snapped with the lineman. Okay. These players are good. A lot of the players, like the good offensive tackles and guards, will not listen to a cadence. They will watch out of the corner of their eye the ball moving, and they'll just be beating their opponent, like beating their fellow center or guard off the ball, but they're timing the snap perfect. So that's just a word of warning here. And in addition to that, referees, you should also keep, since you're looking through the quarterback to this tackle, if one of the running backs flinches or does a move that simulates the snap, such as they fall out of their stance, you'll be able to get that easy false start correct call for that one right there.
Hey, Brian,
Yes.
could you say a little more about why opposite the tight end, or why to the strong side of the formation for the umpire?
So that's more, what you don't want here is us to be on the same side as the referee. Okay. And it's a rule of thumb. If you're in a situation where, because most of the time where the tight end is, they're going to run to. Okay. So we want to be able to, and we want to be able to, if we're working front side, get to that quicker. Okay. It's again, it's not an absolute. If you have a linebacker lined up here and it's blocking your vision getting to the strong side, it's okay to be on the weak side. Okay. In situations like that, little deviations laterally here or there aren't going to hurt you to be able to officiate the play, because you're still getting the center and both guards. What we want to avoid doing a lot is us lining up on the same side as the referee if that strong side is over here, because then we're leaving an entire side sort of open, if for lack of a better term. And if they go this way, the umpire, it's going away from the referee, so the umpire should be working front side. It's a long look for them. Okay, so maybe the better wording is, we want to, when in doubt situations, we want to shade to the other side of the referee. Does that make sense?
It does. I guess just to maybe hammer this home for me. So obviously this is a trips situation, but if it were not, the tight end would be on, and let's say the tight end is on the left side opposite the referee, that puts the umpire on the same side as the referee. We're fine with that, right? In that,
well, you don't, what you don't want to do is be the whole way out here. If you're just shading the center, if you say, if we have, say this player's not here, right, and you're saying the tight end is here, we actually have a balanced formation. Okay. Double, right? You can say, you can go the strength off of the back, or you can just say, you know what, my referee's on that side, I'm going to shade this side because I can help coverage on the bottom side of the field.
okay.
Okay.
Yep. Thank you.
Hey, Brian.
Yes.
So just kind of on this example, like, what if the ball is on the left hash in that situation? Are we going to be still shading left, like in the side zone, or would we want to shift towards the middle?
We don't want to get our width. I don't particularly like the umpire getting the width of the tackle. The manual says we can, and those are situations, if you're going to get that width, it's going to be an unbalanced formation, or you're going to have a tight end in here and two wide receivers out here. You might want to move out a little bit more. I prefer that you stay within no wider than the gap between the guard and the tackle. So to answer your question, yes, you would be, if the ball was lined up here, we would be out here, but we don't ever want to get as wide as the numbers.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Any other questions?
Hey, Brian, this is Nick. Hey, I'm going to have to go. All right. Hey, guys, I apologize. But thank you for, again, attending the referees and umpires. And I will be on tomorrow, Brian, for the beginning portion of the wing guys. So have fun doing the rest of the clinic. All right. Thanks, guys.
Okay, what we would like to avoid is moving before the ball is snapped. As we can see here, we have an umpire moving and the ball is snapped. So we're not in position in this situation to judge on the legality of the snap. So, you know, we want to be 10 yards. So we're snapping from the 20, be on the 30-yard line, you know, and get yourself in a position where you're able to see the ball being snapped. The referee here, I understand probably to, Mr. Ripley let me know earlier that the reason he was so deep was because of the goal line. But I know a lot of you are athletic enough, you know, if the punter is receiving the ball at the 6-yard line and you're 2 to 3 yards behind, puts you at the 3-yard line, I know that you can get those 3 yards and judge that goal line pretty quick. Okay. Good hip, good knee, bad knee, whatever, but you're all athletic enough to be able to do that. So this point was mainly let's try to be in position before the ball is snapped, no matter where we go. But as you can see here, look at what the umpire does do well in this situation is the ball's flying through the air and the umpire's looking upfield. So that's good discipline to not ball watch here. So because he knows that these players are taken care of by the field judge and side judge up the field. And where we're concerned right now is everything behind the play. Okay. See if there's any other ones. So here's the situation. Let's look at, let's look at the referee here. We're snapping from about the 16-yard line and we're on the 1. That's 15 yards. It looks like a long way. Okay. So again, let's just be able to officiate these plays, put ourselves in the best way to officiate these plays. I don't want to continue going down and beating down these paths. I just want to open it up now to any other questions that anybody may have regarding, anything that we've gone over today. That are you confused about, or you still don't understand why we're doing what we're doing? So just open the forum up to everyone right now.
Hey, Brian.
Yes.
Quick question on roughing the snapper. You said, basically till he raises his head, but what if he doesn't raise his head? I mean, generally I give him a rule of thumb. He's got a second and then he becomes a player, second or two, and then he becomes a player. Because if he just keeps his head down the whole snap, I mean, the defender doesn't realize what's going on with that.
So, and I'll let Dave Blair correct me if I'm wrong. I'd feel comfortable if the player was able to defend themselves. Now, if they keep their head down, that doesn't mean that a player can't brush by them and bump them, but they still can't just bury them.
Right.
Snapper, right? So we're going to allow and have a little bit of judgment on the contact, whether it's somebody shooting the gap rather than somebody trying to punish the snapper. Does that make sense?
Yep. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Anybody else have any comments, questions, or anything? And referees, if you got time the next couple of nights, come on and listen to what the rest of the officials are working on, because it'll help you as a crew, understand, I would like us all understand, especially as referees, what the rest of our crew is doing and looking at during plays. What helped me the most when I was officiating is when I would work underclassmen games, I would work other positions so that I could see their perspective to be able to help whenever I was at my normal position. Okay, I could see where a field judge or side judge wasn't able to see something on a long pass, or a referee wasn't able to see something on a inside hold grab of a defensive end because they were blocked out based on where they were standing. So the more we understand how the rest of our machine of a crew works, the better officials we all will become. So any other questions or comments?
Yeah,
Hey,
Brian.
Brian, it's Bill.
Go ahead, Bill.
Hey, Brian, it's Bill. Nick sent me a text and he wanted you to talk about his favorite 2 words. knee pads. So, you know,
I don't think Nick wants me to
Nice,
talk about me.
yeah.
Right. So here's the reality of these situations. Okay. We're unfortunately responsible for players to be legally equipped, and that includes knee pads touching the knee. Okay. We deal in a world where there's litigation and there's points of blame. What I'm going to tell you is take care of these situations prior to the game. Okay. Walk through the stretching lines. And if you walk through one team's stretching lines, you have to walk through both teams' stretching lines. Okay. Even if you know that the other team is clean, it's all about perspective here. Okay. What I don't want as a supervisor to get a phone call that you took out a player in the fourth quarter on the game-winning drive because of knee pads. All this stuff should have been cleaned up earlier in the game. Okay. Work with the players. You know, most of the time it's the stupid kickers that are the problem, because they think because if that knee pad doesn't touch their knee, they can swing their leg a little bit harder. Just talk to them. I mean, I understand as a person when a wide receiver jumps in the air, their pants are going to come up. Okay. Don't make it the call of the day, but we still have to work. We still have to enforce the rules. So work with them in these situations, talk with the coaches as a part of, don't just verbatimly read the sportsmanship and legally equipped message. And some of you probably have it memorized. Ask them, coach, listen, the last thing I want to do is mess up your game by having to take out a player because of knee pads. Just talk to your team about it. Okay. Walk through the lines and do it. Look at them during warm-ups. Nobody anymore buys pants that are from the 70s that comes down to the shins. Unfortunately, everyone wants their uniforms to be tighter so that they can't be grabbed. Okay. Same with eye black. Okay. Get all this stuff done early in the game. I had a conversation with a coach last year who was upset that the officials were walking through his line and not the other team's line. And, we have to understand those situations, and coaches are paranoid. I can give you many talks on those situations. But you asked, could be like, coach, listen, I told him, I said, the officials were doing you a favor. Okay. They were walking through their line to prevent officiating. If you want, I can ask them to no longer bother you during your warm-ups, but keep in mind, you certify that your team is legally equipped, which includes knee pads. We don't want to throw a 15-yard penalty on this. We don't want to mess up the game by doing this. We don't want to take out your best player because they don't want to adhere to it. Do us a favor and help us do our job, and say that, you can even say to them, be like, listen, I know the state rules interpreter is watching this game, and my state or my WPIAL playoff, chances rely on situations such like this. So just don't put me in that bad situation where I have to make that decision. Is that good enough, Bill? Does that cover?
I think that checks the box.
Okay. Any other questions?
Yeah, Brian, we had talked last night, this is Darren again, about weather and ejections and things. And I know with your schedule, you may not be available Fridays late to call. Do you have a person that you're going to have as a point of contact if we have to reschedule for the next day, or to report a specific play, or if there's an issue, I guess is the question.
Okay, so, and I guess we're deviating a little bit, but for those who work games for me, we'll have a Google form link that they will be required to fill out after every game. What I do Saturday morning when I wake up, I open the Google form and I go read through everyone's game, and I get big smiles on my face when I see blowouts, because I know that nothing probably bad happened in the games. The ones that gave me heartburn is when I see a tight game. I ask you to explain to me any unsportsmanlikes, any ejections, and what happened in there. Don't give me any surprises, because if you let me know, I'll go watch the play and I'll already have my defense for you ready whenever if the coach calls. Okay. As far as weather delays, we'll work through that. And it's usually only the first couple weeks of the season. And fortunately I have night games, so I'll stay up a little bit later on Friday night, because surprisingly enough, I watch 2 or 3 games while I'm sitting in my hotel room because I'm pretty freaking bored. So I watch you all. I mainly watch because what Huddle doesn't show is your interactions, is your penalty enforcement, is how you handle a coach. And to me, that's almost just as important as you getting a call right, because I want to see how that train moves with that game. So, that's the kind of stuff that I really get my kicks on, and watching you all do your job. And, I even when I'm going off a tangent, my replay official is from North Carolina, and I brag on you all. I show games of you guys and how good you're doing. And he doesn't understand why his officials can't do as well. So, to answer your question, we'll be able to, we'll figure something out. Between Tim and I, we'll have a process put together. We do have a separate email address that we're going to ask those who work, the games for him and I to email, so that whether it's myself or Tim will always have access to that email and can be able to get the officials that are needed if, for the game the next day, if there's a bad weather issue. Okay.
Outstanding. Thank you. I did have
No
one more
problem.
thing.
Sure.
Some hints, or with the COVID thing being over, people have become a lot more aggressive. I do multiple sports, and I've seen coaches blow up more quickly and be a lot more difficult towards officials. I know your rule is kind of give them a play or two to get over it and let them have their say, but they've really become in your face, mean verbiage, all that. How would you suggest that we address that? Or do you have any hints that we could do it? Because my sideline guys are going to take a beating, I think, a little bit more so.
So I always give them enough rope to really, if there's an issue. Is there some music playing, or is that my thing? Anyway, I always, if they start to get aggressive, I just say, how can I help you? And that's my line to try to diffuse a situation, because most of the time they're trying to buy a call from us, or they're just ticked off. So if we come at them instead of face to face, but ask them, hey, how can I help you? What's wrong? And then let them explain it and say, okay, coach, this is what I saw. And then if that coach comes back to you and says that call's BS, excuse me, can you repeat yourself? Then if they don't get that hint, Darren, and they say it again, then you've given them every opportunity to walk away or to get back into their own mind and think, this is something I really shouldn't say. So those are some tactics that I use. If it doesn't work, and more, coach, until you act in a more professional manner, we can't have a conversation, and you just turn and walk away. I can't use some of the language that I can't tell you to use some of the language that I use, but sometimes I go right back at them.
I get that, and that's great. How do you separate between head coach and assistant coaches? How much different leeway do you give them?
The assistant coach gets 0 leeway with me, and I prefer, and I make it a game. To me, that kind of stuff is the game within the game. If I have a head coach and we're having a heated conversation, and then the assistant coach starts yelling in, I turn to the head coach and say, Coach, whatever the coach's name is, John, Darren, I'll talk to you all day, and I will answer every call everything that you want me to answer, but you got to get him off my back, because I can't handle 2 people screaming at me and officiating this game at the same time. And most of the time that head coach will turn to that assistant and they will ream them out. And I just do it. And as that person's doing it, I have a smile on my face, because he thought he was one-upping me, and I just stuck it to him. And then, you use situations, or you can use the phrase, Darren, of you pull the head coach aside and say, you know what, you give them a little bit of a nugget. Hey, I had a problem with 56 early in the game, but I want you to know he's really doing a good job, controlling his emotions. And then the coach will say something back, and then you say, Coach, I really need a favor from you. How can I help? Can you get your offensive coordinators or defensive coordinators stop yelling, holding at me? I can't think when I'm on this situation. So you just provided the situation where you provided positive feedback for his team. And he's all happy because he thinks you're on his side. And then you're asking him for a favor. Well, you just gave him, you're just adding to that thing, and you're going to get you're always going to have that one or two coaches who are going to, tell you where to stick it, and there's nothing that you really can do. But if you can use tactics such as that, it can help you. Okay. It's not an absolute, but everyone's style is different, Darren. What works for me may not work for you. And I can tell you there are days where I hit 0 to 100 real quick, and I just have to take a deep breath. So my rule of thumb with a coach is I treat them how they treat me. If they give me respect, I give them the same respect right away. If they start chewing on me and then they start yelling, holding every play, and be like, Coach, it's really difficult for me to discern what is and isn't a valid concern by you, because you're yelling holding every play. And you and I both know if I threw a holding on every play, we'd be here all night. And that's not what you want us. So you don't want us to throw flags and litter the game with stoppages. Okay. I can keep going on and on about these situations, but these are just tools that you need to, try to use. And it's a lot of the time it's based on your own personality and how comfortable you feel talking to people.
That's outstanding. No, I do appreciate that. I have to go back to my Psych 101 maybe to deal with some of these guys and get some tips.
When you put in your brain that they, and I had a talk with a referee earlier in the year, and sometimes you have to read the situation. And even though you're right, I told him you have to eat crap. Okay. Because you yelling back and saying by rule I'm right because this, you're making the situation worse. Sometimes the acceptable answer is, okay, coach, I hear you. Let's move on. And we go on. Sometimes they just need to vent because they're 1-6 and they're afraid they're going to get fired. And the school board has a meeting next week and they're afraid for their job. So sometimes in those situations, you have to know when to say when. You each said your piece, and then we just have to move on. Or say, Coach, we just agree to disagree at this point in juncture. You have the tools for the sideline warnings, you have the tools for the UNSs, but those should be used as a last resort. But again, use them if you need them.
Yeah, and as referees with our umpires with us when we meet with the coaches, that's a more than ample opportunity to especially address an unruly head coach if you know going into the matchup, to give him your guidelines and your standards of what's acceptable, what's tolerable, especially to Brian's point about we have a CEO to CEO relationship between you and I. When your assistants get involved, now it's process overload. So if I can't just talk with you and they're getting on me, now we have issues. So it's a cue for them throughout the game. If they see one of their assistants getting upset, he knows where we stand. That's a trigger for us without even having to do anything. If it's a decent head coach that cares about what really is important to us and how we're going to manage the game. So that's just another, your umpire's there, you're present with 2 officials, with 1 coach, where you can kind of set the boundaries and you have a witness where he can't misquote anything you say. That seems to work most consistently with me. I won't say every time, because we do have some characters that will do what they feel and as they please when the situation presents itself, but that seems to be fairly effective also.
And learning a little bit of a human interest story about the coach, I try to find a little tidbit about them. There was a coach one time, I coached at, I was doing a game out of state, and they used to be a coach at Fox Chapel. Well, I told him I was from Pittsburgh. He loved it, and we talked all game, and he was real cool with all that. If you have a common interest, you went to a same high school, or hey, I didn't know you coached at Mount Pleasant. What was it like? What was it like there? Just have them talking. We show that we're human, and if they start to understand that you did a little bit of research on them that way, you're going to have their head spinning and like, well, they looked me up there. What did they know about my team and my game? These guys must and gals must be really into like reviewing our team. It's just, they like to play mind games with you. These are our little ways to play mind games with them. And we all know, and you all talk, who the difficult coaches are, who the screamers are, and who the coaches who, what I like to refer as, they are talking to you while sticking a butter knife slowly in your back, and you don't know that's in you until it comes out the front. So there's those sly ones who just, if your guard's not up, they'll eat you alive too. And so it's just an art form. That's why it's very good to have, when you're making your crew and you're putting people in positions, put your good salesman on your wings, whether it's deep or short wing. And if you have a new official, have someone there who can help that new official, because that is one of the most difficult things to go through. You're sitting there trying to understand what just happened on the play, and I have a coach just screaming at me the entire time, and you don't know whether to what's going on here. If you have that calming veteran presence that can come in and help those situations, it really helps that official. And then you even pull that coach aside and say, Coach, you know what? Talk to me about your problems. Scream at me. I can take it. Let that official just worry about the game and talk to me. I will get to that official. So those are all ways that you can help manipulate the situation to your advantage. Any other questions? If not, I thank you all for your time and for coming on. Great questions tonight. I like the interaction. Hopefully you learned something and understand why. Tim and I will get the slides out to you all as well as the slides for all the other positions, so that everyone can understand what we're going through. But if not, have a great night, and look forward to seeing you all again soon.
Thank you, Brian.
Thanks, Brian. Thank you very much.
Thank you all.
Thanks, Brian.
Thank you.